2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1. By the humility and gentleness of Christ, I appeal to you, I, of Christ, I appeal to you, I, Paul, who am timid when face to face with you, but bold towards you when away. I used to want to do gaming videos, and I guess I'm gonna try something different because I've just kind of been good at it. I'm gonna try talking, just talking, because I'm kind of good at it. I like playing games, but I'm not too good at that. I like playing sports, but I'm not too good at that either. So I'm gonna try something different. I'm gonna try to play some games. I'm gonna try to talk about some of my experiences, and I don't claim to have any answers, first and foremost. I don't think I ever will. You'd have to go to God about that. But what I'm going to speak about today is something that I've been considering doing for a while. I wasn't bold enough. I always deliberated and questioned whether I really should. But I guess I'm really going to do it today. I'm going to tell you what no one has yet. Now, if you can't tell from my voice, I've only been alive around 21 years or so. But I feel like in these 21 years, I've experienced a lot more than what your average 21-year-old experiences. I don't know how to start this. I don't know what I'm doing at all. That's how I'm going to start it. I'm 21. I have an average job doing something I feel like is average. The standards I'm held to aren't average by any means, but by all means, it's an average job on an average day in an average place. There are many times in the past weeks, months, years perhaps, where I've had to do things that I really didn't want to do. And I mean really. And I truly mean that with every ounce of my being. There have been things that I'd probably rather die than do. And I used to be the kind of person, and I didn't have the worst life growing up, but my home life definitely could have been better. But I had made up in my mind around 14 or 15 that there was nothing that anyone was going to make me do that I didn't want to do. And I soon found out I was wrong. There were many things that I was going to have to do that I really didn't want to do. And of course I could have simply just not did it. But it would have been not only in my favor for me to do those things, but it would have been extremely detrimental to my progress as a human being, as a young man, if I didn't do those things. There have been plenty times where I really just didn't want to do something, and it's really sucked. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you, it's really sucked. It's never fun growing up. Everyone reminisces about it every so often. Whenever they used to be younger and their mother would tuck them in, and they'd hear a story or two. I mean, I never got that per se, but you get the idea. You're picking up what I'm putting down. And I've been wrestling since that young old age. It feels like a long time for me, but I suppose to anyone who may be listening to this, you might be a little bit older. It might not be so long for you, but for me, it feels like I've felt every second, and somehow no second at all. It feels like the days have been short. The days were long, but the weeks, months, maybe even years were short. It was awful. It started around when I was 16. Now, I know I'm jumping around a lot. I lose my train of thought easily. It started when I was 16. I got a job working at a place that sounds like Sanic, right? Which, for those of you who don't know, I believe it's Evil Sonic, but they called it Sanic. It was in a game, very old. But I started working there, and I up until then I had yet to experience the cruelty of the world. I mean, of course, I grew up with a single mother. Life wasn't easy. You know, it wasn't the hardest it could have been, but it definitely wasn't a cakewalk. I knew the ins and outs. I knew there were some times you had to work jobs that drove you insane. There were jobs that you just really didn't want to work, and you had no other choice because if you were, a single parent, and to all my single parents out there, if your kids are still alive, if your kids are still doing well, then you're doing better than most if you're keeping your kids fed. My mom was convinced that you had to do what you had to do to survive, and that's very often true. But with me, I had to start working at Sanic. I want to emphasize Sanic, okay? And it was awful. It's a minimum wage job. I worked as a cook. I was a cook flipping burgers. I probably made a little under 700 burgers, genuinely. And I worked there for like a year, and I know that may not seem like a long time for a lot of you, but, for me, for minimum wage job, 16-year-old me, that was a very long time. And I did not do a lot of it without having mental breakdowns. There was very often where, you know, I had to do a lot of things that I really didn't want to do, such as cooking and scrubbing ceiling tiles and saying yes sir and no ma'am, and I'm not exactly disrespectful, but I feel like I feel like that is kind of like sucking up to someone almost. That's how I feel about it sometimes. I'm all for giving someone respect where it's due. I have nothing against it. I believe in it. But, I digress. Today, that's not the moral of the story. Here's what no one tells you, okay, to my young individuals watching. No one tells you that you're going to have to do something you absolutely hate. No one tells you that you're going to absolutely hate doing it. Perhaps even every step of the way, just like I did. It was not fun. And it won't be fun for you. And I wish I could say otherwise. I wish I could say you might, get through it unscathed and it might just be another day. You might like it. Sure, you actually might like it. But at some point in your life, you will have to do something that you absolutely abhor, and it will be in your best interest to actually do it. You see, for me, if I didn't work at Sanic, I'd be out of the house. And 16-year-old me, I believe I was maybe sophomore or junior at the time, maybe freshman. I might have been a freshman. I think I was right at freshman, actually. And for me, that was like, wow, out of the house. Well, there, mom. Getting a little ahead of ourselves. There's no reason that we have to start there, but that's where we started. And so every time I thought about quitting, every time they made me do something absolutely stupid, absolutely abhorrent, I would think back and I'd keep myself going because, believe it or not, I was making money up there. A lot more money than I'm making now. Well, that's a lie, actually. Not as much money as I'm making now. The situations were very different, but I was making money there. I was far from happy, but I had friends, I had connections, and I wasn't out of the house. For me, that was like the end of the world. And I know some of you people, some of you guys out there were out of the house at like the age of like 10. And that's wonderful, but this guy wasn't. I didn't have that. I was too afraid. I was a little scaredy cat. I was like, what? Out of the what? No, no, thank you. I'll pass. Thank you very much. I don't plan on being out of anywhere. But that's that for me. That's what my experience was. That was my. It would be in your best interest to do this kind of thing, and you're gonna get in situations like that where it will be in your best interest for good or for worse if you wanted to go that route, for you to do something that you really, really don't want to do. And to that, I have a few things to say. One, you've already heard me say it won't be fun. You'll hate it. In fact, I'm in that position right now where I am I am in a position where if I do not do this particular thing at my job, then life will suck for me. Very, very bad. Life will suck. Life will get worse. My quality of life will get worse. Would it be the end of the world? No. I'm not going to get tossed in a trash bag and thrown behind a dumpster after getting beat half to death. But life will get worse for me. It'll be like burning a bridge. And for those of you who like doing that or who might think you like doing that, I would say don't. I would say don't. You never know where those bridges might lead, where those bridges might help you, where all your others might fall away, and that will be the only one. Like, ah, man, I cursed out Steve the other day and I told him to go jump off a bridge. Well, looks like you're on the road. Your car broke down. You're in the middle of nowhere, and you only have Steve to help you. Steve is the only one that answered, and now you're sitting there on the phone, a little awkward. Now you have to sit there and ask Steve for help. Hopefully, Steve's very forgiving. In this position, in my job, if I do not, so let me actually put this into perspective, or rather explain it better, I suppose. If I do this thing, if I do gain this credential, because that's what it is, they're telling me I have to gain a credential, that I have a certain amount of time to gain a credential that I don't want, because it comes with responsibility. And, I used to avoid it all the time. I used to avoid thinking about it, but, the truth is, I'm afraid of responsibility. I'm afraid of having to be responsible for other people and other things because I've never had to do it before. It was never a requirement for me. I never really had to consider it at that level. I never really had to be like, oh yeah, if I do this, yep, I got to take responsibility for my own actions. And it's not like my family didn't hold me responsible. But I'm not going to say that because I was held responsible at every end. Maybe even a little over responsible. Maybe that led to a little bit of why I fear it, but I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of having to be responsible. And getting this credential means that I have to be responsible for a lot more people, and a lot more important things. it effectively makes me a supervisor. And the way, the way the cards have fallen, if I do not gain this credential, I can be demoted. And in my particular workforce, you know, at the particular employee rank, I should say, at that particular level, you become just another worker. And perhaps I'm afraid of hard work too. But what good does that do me to be afraid of it? I will have to confront it someday. And so will you. You too will one day have to confront the very things that you run from, the very things that scare you the most. And you will have no other options. You will not be able to run anymore. It will either make you or break you. And that's where I'm sitting right now. And I never really understood that saying until now. I am truly in a position where my next decisions can truly make me. Now you see, if I do gain this credential, not only do I, gain more responsibility, I suppose, I when I get in trouble, it's more serious as opposed to before when I get in trouble. It's like breaking a glass in a thrift store as opposed to breaking a glass in a very expensive wine store. You know what I mean? Like the stakes are high. The stakes are higher, but on the other hand, I am the manager now within that wine store. One of the managers, I suppose. I am responsible for people and those glasses of wine, and it scares me. It scares me. It truly does scare me. It gives me a level of anxiety that I find very hard to put into words. I'm afraid to take that risk. But what if I don't? What if I don't? What if I'm passing up probably one of the best decisions I could ever make? Truly. And you will be in the exact same position someday, where you will have to do something that you don't like, that you won't like, that you probably will never like. Not it by itself, but it might just make you instead of breaking you if you let it. You see, if I gain this credential, as I was trying to say earlier before I got lost in my own little tangent, if I gain this credential, yes, I gain more responsibility and I might get in more trouble if I do get in trouble, you know? But I also gain experience. I gain undeniable experience that gains me a level of respect that I feel like I would deserve a certain level of respect. But there's all the hardships that come with it, the messing up. And believe you me, I am deathly afraid of messing up. Truly. Why? More childhood stuff. Like I said, wasn't the best, but definitely wasn't the worst. I wasn't beat with a stick. I wasn't beat up by Batman every day, but definitely wasn't fun. And I think what I think about that situation in particular is that my mother was doing best with what she had at the time. And it is what it is. Sometimes it is what it is. Today I've come to understand that this is what I prayed for. It is what it must be. That's probably what I'll title this video. It is what it must be. It is something that it must be. This is what will make me or break me. This will either cripple the rest of my career in this particular field, or this will make it all the much easier. Because at that level, yeah, it's like I said before, I get more responsibility, but I also get to relax a little bit more. Sure, the things I'm doing carry more weight, but what if I'm not doing those things? I'm probably not doing anything. And it's not because, yeah, sure, I could be lazy, but it's because I earned it. I said like that. It's because I earned it. It's not just out of the blue. So that's where I'm sitting right now. In that spot where I'll have to I have to do something that will make or break me. And currently, I know I keep getting silent. It's because my mind's everywhere right now. I'm doing a lot of things. If I do gain this credential, I get respect, more time off perhaps, experience, responsibility, but I will be needed. Not just needed for labor, for the workforce, to fill in empty spaces, but I will genuinely be needed by those below me, by those around me. I will genuinely give something to the machine I am a part of. Not only that, but it might carry me even if I decide to leave this career field. It's experience that you literally cannot quite take away. And that's the one, and that's the one thing I'm coming to understand is that when you do something you didn't want to do, or you get to an outcome that you didn't want, like say, like me working at Sanic, it wasn't wasted time. It wasn't a bad outcome. It was experience. That is what I gained. I can say that I did it for a year. Perhaps a year isn't so long. Not to everyone, but for me it is. It is when you're doing it. Trust me. Ask anyone who's been to prison for a year or jail for a year. They will tell you themselves that it's a long time. So yeah, you're gonna go through some hard stuff. You're gonna go through some stuff that you don't like. You're gonna have to do things you don't like. And you can't keep yourself in a pit where you don't want to do it. If you continue to loathe over it, let me put it like this. What good would worrying and being upset do you in that situation where you don't want to do something, but you have to, and you're eventually gonna, or else, right? Or else that horrible, dreadful thing will happen and you will be set back by however much, you know? So it's kind of like all cards are on the table. You've got to choose. You've got to make the decision, and it's going to suck, but all things will. Both decisions might suck. If I do decide to do this, if I do decide to take on this credential, it's going to suck. If I don't, that will suck too. If I do, it comes with tests and and regular audits and all manner of things. People peering in, making sure I'm doing, the best, and as it should, I suppose. It's a different kind of feeling, though, when you really, truly don't want to do it. Like being congratulated for winning a race, for winning first place in a race that you did not want to be with, that you didn't want to be in at all. A race that you tried your best to convince your coach, your parents, or whatever, that you really, truly didn't want to do at all. But what happens if you get drafted by, you know, what do we call them? Scouts. What happens if a scout visits you, offers you the best deal of your life? Look at that. You've been trying to get out of your mother's house, your father's house. You've been trying to do XYZ, and they're offering it all to you. Well, I've always wanted to go to, you know, Hale or whatever they call it. You know, I've always wanted to go to Streamers University. Just some crazy university out there. HOU or U of H, whichever one. And now they're offering it to you. Now imagine if you succeeded and not doing that thing that you truly, truly didn't want to do. Like your parents, they gave in. Your coach, they gave in. They're like, sure, fine. And you just stayed home that day and you did absolutely nothing. What do you have to show for it? Both options sucked. You were doing that race, it was a 1600. You had to run an entire mile, and it was awful, horrible, and painful the entire way through. You, on the flip side, you sat at home, you did nothing. And knowing that you weren't going anywhere, because it catches up to all of us at some point. Some sooner, some others later, but it catches up to us all at some point. That you had the potential to go somewhere, and you didn't. You can either live with the regret of doing it or the regret of not doing it. Now, don't take that out of context and go kill your next door neighbor because I said that. You can either live with the regret of knowing you tried and failed, but got the experience, did it, you did it, whether you failed or not, you were there and you put down the work and you tried, and you could try again if you wanted, persistence even, or you can not do it. You can stay home that day. You can not truly care about running that 1600, and now you're just floating. Oh, I didn't do it. I just stayed home. Oh, I feel so good staying at home and just sitting there. And I'm not saying that you're not allowed to relax and feel good, stay at home, and by all means, have a lazy day. By all means. But it's that static, it's that lack of movement, that lack of progress. I have come to realize, even in my own health, right? Because I'm a lot less fit than I should be, but I'm not so much unhealthy, but I'm a lot less fit than what I should be. I have come to realize that you are either, and it's one or the other, unfortunately. But they can both happen as slow or as fast as you dictate. That you are either suffering from the pain of success, from the pain of progress, or the pain of regress. One of those, one of those will be a slow burn that will stick with you the longer it exists. One of those will. The others, it will have its ups, it will have its downs, because that is life. Because that is the way life is. But another, good things will come out of it. Or, sorry. The other one, you might not. You'll sit there. You've progressed to such a point that you can't do XYZ like you used to anymore. And this can be applied to anything. Now, of course, like I said, don't go beat up your neighbor with a bat and then stuff him in a trash bag and then toss him behind a Kroger's grocery store. Okay? But what I'm saying is apply this to reasonable things, of course. You're going to have to keep progressing. And there will come a time where if you run from progress like I have, you can run as far as you want from everything. But eventually, there will come a time where you will have to answer to it because it will catch up to you. It will catch up to you. You can either be ready with an answer, a good one or a bad one, or You can sit and wait and have no answer at all. You can be afraid. You can be scared of taking that risk, going out there and doing that thing, or you can confront it now. Go out there and get it now. It's going to suck, but it won't be forever. You know, it gets worse the longer you feel it. Regret. Ask me how I know. I'll talk more another time when I get the inspiration. Hopefully, this reaches whoever needed to reach. If you have any questions or anything else that you think you'd like me to talk about, feel free to ask. I'm not going to claim to know everything, but I don't feel like the dullest knife in a drawer. I feel like